Hello and welcome to EdD 700. This is the Module 5 overview. And first and foremost, I don't want you to be scared by this module. And that's never a good thing when an instructor introduces a module in that way, because you're certain to think, oh no, what does she have in store for us? Module 5 is the biggest module within this course. It's a 3-week module. Very reading intensive, very writing intensive, because again, we're putting a lot of the skills that you've learned thus far to use. We also cover 4 chapters within this particular module. I could not come up with a better way, to break these 4 chapters up, because they all kind of feed together. We cover 4 chapters within this module because it's all an exploration of theories and models as they pertain to a particular change or organization change. And we've been working with theorists up to this point, so hopefully a lot of this feels like somewhat of a review, but in this particular module, what I want you to do is focus on the application of a model that applies to your individual change. So in the overview about this module, I talk about chapter 7 and within the Burke book. And chapter 7 talks a lot about the background of how research on organization change was conducted over time and where we are with the type of research we're conducting currently. Chapter 8 looks at conceptual models, and this is really, again, an overview of what you've been working on thus far within your papers. You've been writing about the theorists and trying to determine which theorists you like the best to apply to your particular situation, and chapter 8 is just a further exploration of these models and theorists. But the way Burke breaks them down is he looks at the what versus the how. So he looks at theoretical versus process models. And so in many cases, this is you're probably revisiting information that you've already looked at before, but again, it helps to look at it at different points of your development to help you better understand what you've already been reading. Chapter 9 looks at integrated models, or models that are used to enact a change. And so many times an integrated model is based on a lot of previous theorists' work and is much more complex. So I will tell you, in the writing of this paper for the module, you're likely going to choose a conceptual model, because that's going to be more aligned with the type of change that you've proposed. An integrated model, while it's very good for you to look at what an integrated model looks like, so that later on down the line, when you're preparing for a larger research project, you have some awareness of what one of those models looks like. It's probably a little bit beyond the scope of what you're dealing with right now. And that's why, again, I don't want you to be afraid of this module and the reading intensive nature of it. Again, for example, with the different changes that you're looking at, you might have a couple of models that apply to your particular situation. For example, Lewin and then Shine did a considerable amount of work on what Lewin started, and he looks really at group think. So if you have a chain, but then again, Maslow looks at an individual. So in the last module, we talked a lot about resistance and how to overcome resistance to change. And in a way, I wanted you to explore at what level your change is going to occur, whether or not it's an individual change or a group change, how it affects the overall structure of whatever organization you're dealing with, to help you better align with the theorists or theories that you will choose to best represent the type of change that you're working with. And in if it's a case of an individual type of change, then you're going to want to look at theorists that speak more to an individual type of change. If it's one that involves a group or a larger system, then you would want to look at those particular types of theories. So again, I know I'm being somewhat vague, but hopefully your prior work up to this point has sort of steered you in a direction of, yes, I've explored 5 theorists, I've built themes, but now I'm going to go forward and I'm going to pick just one that really applies. But yet you've got all this rich data and rich writing to sort of support why this particular model or theory applies best to your situation. Chapter 10 is an exploration of Burke's model, the one that he came up with on his own to apply to organizational change. As you've been reading, he's been an active consultant. And but again, his model is more integrated, so it might be a bit too complex for what you're dealing with. But what I found most interesting in chapter 10 is Burke's exploration of a leader versus a manager. And what it's important to make that distinction, and it might be something that you want to explore within your own individual change. If you have somebody who approaches change from a manager type of standpoint, that might have a very different look and feel as far as strategies go versus someone who's considered a leader. And so that's something that you might want to explore. Again, the paper that I want you to write for this particular section will feed into the larger paper, the larger scope. But again, here we've sort of started at the beginning. We wanted you to identify your change, talk about change in general, and how your change relates within all of the information about change. Then we went on and we explored contemporary aspects and what's going on currently within your particular field as far as change is concerned. You've explored resistance and how strategies to overcome resistance to change. Now we want you to filter down further. My change applies best to this particular model or this particular theory, and why? Because then in future papers, we're going to focus more on the leader versus manager aspect and work that into your overall paper. So again, I know there's a lot of reading involved. This is very reading intensive because we want you to explore models and what they look like overall, and also explore tools that go along with models. For example, if you wanted to explore potential resistance to change or find out information based on what you want to incorporate in a proposed project to help overcome a deficiency or something that's lacking within your organization, you may want to conduct a survey. And so then that takes into account a lot of Likkert's work, and we talk about the Likert scale or Likert, depending on who is talking about that particular theorist. All of this was based on a management style of his, and they did a lot of surveys to determine management style and try to identify where or how to approach change. Is the best way to describe it. So he used a lot of survey feedback, and so a lot of larger studies that are quantitative in nature use survey feedback to help the project move forward. So again, there's a lot of stuff to think about here, but my main goal is to introduce models to you so that you can evaluate them and apply them to a particular change so that you feel comfortable with that moving forward as you work toward larger research projects. So if you have any questions, please be sure to let me know. Writing intensive, reading intensive, so I've broken the discussions up so that it's a little bit more manageable for you. 3 discussion posts are due at the end of week 1. The remaining 3 discussions are due at the end of week 2. Responses are all due at the end of week 3, and the paper is due at the end of week 3. And the paper within this module will be graded based on the feedback that you've been given, just like the first 4 modules within this course, but the grade will stand at this point. Again, happy reading. I know you have a lot of reading, but I hope you find a lot of these articles to be very useful and ones that you can use within your paper and beyond, because that's the whole point of this, is to help you build a library that's useful to you. Happy studying. Let me know if you need anything. Thanks.